with a history of over 150 years. Bonham is a church that has always finished faithful. Generation upon generation, our forefathers have continued to build and grow this church for the community, our church family, and people like me, the future generation. So take a journey with us on where we have been, what we are doing in the world, and why it is so important to finish faithful.
Finishing what we've started is more than just an old cliche. It's a lesson that we all must learn somewhere along the way. And for those who've learned that lesson, the value is quite clear. It's the efforts of those who have finished before that have ultimately brought us here.
3 years ago, it was my privilege to sit on these steps and to invite all of you into a capital stewardship journey called Together for Tomorrow. And what an amazing journey that has been for us at Bonham. We have seen God do absolutely amazing things. We have a gorgeous new facility now that we have both added to and renovated, which has allowed us to put in place a platform for ministry and mission for the generations yet to come. We have a beautiful new commons area where we can disseminate ministry and mission information, a place where we can receive guests, and a place where we can celebrate our unity as a congregation each Sunday. We have wonderful new education space now for the training and teaching of adults and children and youth. And we have beautiful new worship spaces which have been renovated so that we can have a deep and rich encounter with God in worship every Sunday. God has been doing amazing things in our midst. And now it's time for us to finish the journey. You know, Bonham has always been a place where people have finished faithful. That's our legacy. That's the DNA of who we are. And now is the time for us to continue this journey and to finish faithful.
It is an exciting time at Bonham. God is on the move. Because of Him, we're seeing more non-Christians come into Bonham to hear the gospel explained, and we're seeing more folks go out from Bonham to serve in the city and to serve overseas. God is on the move. We're seeing more and more new people stream into Bonham every week to see what He is up to. And because of all this, this is the perfect time for us to keep our hands to the plow, which is what this Finishing Faithful journey is all about. And it's why Tom and I invite you all to join us and our families as we embark on this journey together.
Finishing faithful, finishing strong.
Great movements of God always begin with a stirring of the Spirit. God's Spirit comes in the Bible upon a number of people, and we see things that happen as a result. Abraham is stirred by the Spirit of God, and he goes and he finds what will become the Holy Land for Israel's people. God stirs the spirit of Moses, and Moses will go down and rescue those people and move them from captivity to freedom. Paul's spirit is stirred to move beyond preaching to the Jews to bring the good news of Christ to the Gentiles. And even in our own history as a congregation, we see the stirring of God's Spirit in our founding. Salmon Giddings rode all the way out from New England in the winter on horseback, responding to the Spirit stirring as he founded congregations on what was the frontier in those days. The stirring of the Spirit always starts with a sense of holy discontent, that somehow there's more for us to do, that God's calling is broader, that there's a wider sense in the world of what we need to be about for the sake of Jesus Christ. And God's Spirit stirs us to move from the safe place to the place of uncertainty, to the place where God will use us to do amazing things. Bonham's history has been full of such stirrings of the Spirit, and God's Spirit still is stirring among us today.
Well, the reason we're here is because about 20 months ago, when we came out of that congregational meeting, our hearts were stirred that the decisions that had been made wouldn't meet the needs of Bonham Church moving forward.
You know, the economic times we were in were frightening, and as we looked at the choices we had as a congregation, it made sense that we not overextend ourselves, that in fact we only build what in fact we could afford.
So we got together with some friends, and on the Wednesday night after the Sunday meeting, about 30 of us got together, and we decided that we wanted to work with Session and through Session to solve this problem and somehow get the vote back in front of the congregation, in front of the people.
I just felt like God had told us that He wanted us to complete the whole project, that in fact He had told us very specifically, just as He had told, I remember at the time talking to my wife about the fact that God had told Moses exactly how He wanted to build a tabernacle, and I felt He had already told us that, and that was to complete that entire project that we didn't have enough money for. And I just felt like after that congregational meeting that we had let God down, that we had really not trusted Him enough to carry out what He had already told us He wanted us to do.
And I think it was important to convey the passion that the task force had come to know. It was a transformation, not just a bricks and mortar or a building campaign. It was a vision, it was the on fire for Bonham. And we knew that we were all God's people, in God's house, working for God's glory.
That all of us there had this collective sense that God's will had not been carried out, and that all of us had this stirring in our hearts that said we have got to correct this and to go back and to revisit what we were going to plan to do.
So we scheduled another meeting, and during that second meeting, we suddenly noticed that everyone was talking kind of along the same path. We didn't have any discussion of what's the goal, what's the objective, none of that. It was just bingo, we knew. We just felt all of us got the same feeling at the same time that the Holy Spirit had taken over our project.
And to do what needed to be done was going to take a risk. We were going to have to step out of our comfort zones, and we were going to step out in faith. And that risk was going to be through God. We're prepositional people. It's going to happen through God. And if you can't take a risk with God, then with whom can you take a risk? And this was truly the time for such a time as this.